Welcome to Local Flavor. I'm Deborah Anderson, and I'm here in rural Panokie at the home of Mary Goddard, who's doing a little bit of kitchen work behind us. But my guest today is Fran Schaefer. You're here from Grand Island, Nebraska.
That's right.
And this is Mary's sister, and we are making some recipes from her cookbook today. So I want you to show us a little bit about the book.
Well,
first of all.
This is my cookbook, Shortcuts to Gourmet Cooking. This was my restaurant that I had in Grand Island, and it is now a residence. It's right on Highway 30.
Were you living there when it was a restaurant
Yes,
too?
it was. That's where the restaurant was. I had the restaurant. It was an Italian restaurant for 23 years, and it was called known as Palazzo Restaurant.
Nice. And that story is all in the book, right?
It was a childhood dream of mine. I was born and raised in Grand Island. It was my childhood dream to own this house, so I've had it now 30 years. Yeah.
And then you could write it off as a business expense.
That's
since you put a
right.
restaurant
That's
in
right.
it.
That's right, boy.
Good
You have to
thinking.
think. The book has received 4 national honorable mentions. In 2009, it received it from San Francisco, Nashville, Boston, and then 2010 from New York Book Festivals.
Nice.
Honorable mentions.
And what did they like mostly about it?
Like all the helpful hints and all the suggestions. I kind of changed the glossaries. I put them in with the section that they belonged in instead of just back in the back. And then all the helpful hints were with the recipes instead of in the back too.
I really like that it has stories about your family and
Yes.
all of that stuff and the pictures. And your husband did the drawings, is
My
that
husband
right?
did the drawings, yes.
That give kind of step-by-step instructions, so it's not just a list of ingredients, but you really get a picture of what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's
And
really
my
nice.
son was ADHD, and that's how I got involved in cooking. I had him on an all-natural diet, so this is cooking from scratch. It's all natural. And
We're not doing this today, but before we started, she gave us a taste of the beet cake, which I have this cookbook, and I would have just passed through that page thinking, I'm not eating a beet cake, but it was delicious. It was like a chocolate or red velvet cake, so don't miss a single page in the book when you get it. You're going to miss something good.
everything. Yeah.
So today we're going to make raviolis, and the recipe is in this book, right?
Yes, we're going to make 3 raviolis. We're going to make beef, chicken, and cheese.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to do first, though, is we grated our own Parmesan cheese, and after I quit the restaurant, I found out how to grate it with a Kitchenaid. And so I'm going to show you how to do that first.
I love
As
any
you-
new ideas
yes.
with my Kitchenaid, so let's hear.
Well, now this is a grater that I use. It's a fine grater of the Kitchenaid, and I put it in here.
Now, I actually have this attachment,
You
so I'm going
do.
to find a new way to use it.
That's right. And then my little quick trick is I put a grocery sack in here, and I do this so that when I grate the cheese, it doesn't fly all over.
So as long as we picked a grocery sack that hadn't had meat dripping in it, or just as long as it was
just
a clean one.
a clean one. Sometimes you can even take an extra grocery sack.
Oh, while they're not looking.
While they're not looking at. And what I do is I freeze my cheese, and that way it grates finer.
Oh,
So I freeze it in the size that I can use in the grater. And then I just bring it down like this.
So you get your chunk of cheese, cut it into greater size, the machine size pieces, and then freeze it.
And then you can see here the cheese grating.
But the bag's keeping it from spitting out at us.
That's right. Yeah, if you didn't have that bag on there, you'd have to hold this up
Oh, to catch it.
to catch it, yeah. And it was just something I figured out on my own.
But it does. It looks different than if you get a package of freshly grated. It's
No.
more in slivers, and this is more powdered.
Yes, and the taste is, you just can't imagine the taste of real grated cheese compared to the grated cheese you get at the store. There's absolutely no comparison. In fact, at the restaurant, people would use up a whole jar of the cheese.
Oh no.
Yeah, we'd
Well,
have
that's
to
not
refund.
good. You
Well,
better
no.
give them small jars.
Well, we did. Now, after this, we turn this off, and we can put this in a container or in a plastic Ziploc bag. And the next thing we do is we clean the blades, and how we do that is we do it with dried bread.
Oh, so these are the breadcrumbs that Mary
These are
keeps
the-
talking about
yeah,
how she
those.
makes for
So we'll
herself.
put this over here, and then I get another sack, You can grate at this time.
So this is not only accomplishing our needs for dried bread crumbs, but cleaning off our blade.
That's right. And these are things that you need to make ravioli.
Now, was that a fresh piece of bread, or it sounded pretty hard? How did you get it?
It's hard bread. What I do is I save all my old pieces of bread. I don't care what they are. They could be any kind of bread. And then I bake them for 15 minutes at 350. Turn the oven off, and let it sit overnight. And then your bread will be really hard.
Right.
And we'll make nice soft breadcrumbs. This has a hole in it. So anyhow, we'll just show you the breadcrumbs in here.
Now, do you need to bake it to get it dry, or is that more to kill bacteria?
Yeah, for bacteria, you know. But here's your breadcrumbs. They're nice and
yeah, that looks just like powder.
yeah, just like powder. So that's one thing. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the cheese ravioli.
Okay, awesome.
You use ricotta cheese. Now you can use that, and if you don't have it, you can use the small curd cottage cheese. I know that everybody just goes, oh, that can't be right, but it can be.
They do taste very similar. The texture's a little different.
In fact, for my lasagna, I always use cottage cheese over ricotta. You need a cup of Parmesan cheese.
That you just grated,
that
okay.
We just grated. And we need 10 ounces of spinach.
Now, is that prepared the same way as when we made cannelloni?
That's right.
So 10 ounces of spinach, that's about one frozen package. And it looked like you had onions in there.
We had onions. We sauteed onions and spinach and butter.
Okay, awesome.
And you want to saute that and then let it dry in the skillet just until it cools.
Yes.
And then all the moisture will be out of it. And that's the purpose of letting it dry in the skillet. And then we want to have a cup of breadcrumbs. So we got that right here. A fourth a teaspoon of nutmeg. And that's just for this little flavor that nutmeg brings to any food. It just kind of enhances it.
I'll tell you, I
especially
just
that
thought of
cheese.
nutmeg in sweet dishes, but Mary, ever since I met her and had her make me the bechamel with the nutmeg, I've become a huge fan of nutmeg.
And what we're going to do...
What was the last thing you put in that I didn't... Oh, the eggs. 2 eggs. Very
Two
good.
eggs. And once again, as with all fillings, you want this to go in the refrigerator. The reason for that is because it incorporates all the flavors. And if you start using it right away, it just won't taste as well.
So how long do you recommend leaving it in?
I'd leave it in. I'd make this the day before.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I would. I'd make it the day before. And I think that you'll find that it really has a lot of different flavors. And it makes it really delicious. And you notice your farm eggs here make it
a little yellow.
That's
Do you want me to
kind
put that in the fridge for you then?
And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to grind your meat. And once again, it's a Kitchenaid grinder. We use the small holes for ravioli,
Okay.
not the big holes.
And this is for the meat, but not for the pasta, right?
This is for the meat.
I unfortunately have the little pasta plates that go in there, but it's not like the pasta you've been making for us. So.
And I'm going to put the breadcrumbs. Now this meat, Mary had a dinner Sunday night, and this is leftover chicken from the dinner. Now this is how the Italian women did the ravioli. It was what was left over in their refrigerator. So they would take leftover meat and add to it Parmesan cheese, eggs, breadcrumbs, and spinach, and you had a ravioli.
So they would add to it the stuff we just put in the fridge, or these. Okay,
Yeah.
very nice.
Yep.
So
here we go.
what makes it ravioli is that it's a pocket, not that it has chicken in it or what's in
right.
the filling.
And Mary, I need that little plunger thing. Sure. I don't know where that's at. And so this is thighs and legs. And we're just going to grind this up.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do have the meat grinder too.
And another thing this is good for is if you want to make chicken salad sandwiches or beef salad sandwiches, this is what you would do.
Just with leftover chicken?
With leftover chicken. So, I mean, there's a lot of uses for leftovers.
Oh.
With the price of food now, you really want to save everything you can.
Now, this is leftover chicken, but I know that it was seasoned and cooked. Would it matter if you put in chicken that had been cooked differently?
Oh, it will make a bit of difference.
Okay.
No, because the filling isn't that big in your ravioli.
Yeah.
It's small. Really what it is the texture of the ravioli that you're eating and the sauce that's on it. And so it isn't, you don't want to have a big filling. Okay, now that's done, and I'm going to show you, it's the very same recipe that we did before. We put in
Okay.
a cup of cheese.
So the only thing that's probably going to be different is instead of ricotta, we're putting chicken. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can remember. A cup of cheese,
Cup of cheese.
cup of breadcrumbs.
That's about a cup, see?
Okay.
You can just kind of eyeball.
Nutmeg, which I thought we were done with.
No, a little nutmeg. And then, Mary, if you'll bring me over the spinach that's over there, it'll help. And we'll use 3 eggs here. It looks like we got a little bit more. And so.
You want to put it in here? Mm-hmm, that's the stuff.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this in here. And I have my
Did you need spinach in this
flat
one
paddle.
too?
Yep, the spinach in there. Now a lot of this doesn't need salt and pepper. There's a lot of salt and cheese. I would not suggest using a lot of additional salt and pepper because your meat already was salted. Your cheese is salted. A lot of your breads are salted because if you use garlic bread, it's salted. So it's really not necessary. Here's your chicken now. See, and all this stuff is cooked. I mean, your chicken's cooked. You've got some raw eggs here, but everything is pretty much, the filling's pretty much cooked. So it's pretty safe to eat.
Now, are you going to cool this also so it has a chance to get all those
Put it
flavors?
in the refrigerator so that it incorporates the flavors of everything that's in there. And then we'll be ready to make it in a little bit. First, I'm going to show you how to make beef ravioli. We made this last night and it's already been cooled, so.
And the only difference for the filling would be that where you put in chicken, it'd be cooked beef. So Fran and I took a little break to clean out the work area, make a bigger mess, and try and clean it up a little bit again. We're ready to roll out our pasta so we can start making the raviolis that we promised.
Yeah. Okay, we already have rolled out 2 of them. So we have one for each kind that we're going to make today.
And this pasta is the same recipe from the book?
It's the same recipe from the book. It's semolina flour. Now, you don't have to use semolina flour, and for years I just used unbleached eggs. But I really like the semolina. It gives it a little harder texture, and I think it makes a much nicer noodle.
Okay.
So my pasta machine at home has a motor. I had a pasta machine, well, it was the pasta machine like this, and then I found a motor. And now, I always have an extra motor handy so that I never run out.
But she didn't bring it.
Yeah,
They're both in Grand Island.
Yeah.
So we're going old-fashioned here. But
Yeah, we're going old-fashioned. And this is how I make my dough so that I want it the width of the machine, and then I want the ends flat. And so I just keep rolling it until it gets that way.
Now, if you caught the episode that we've done before, we did an episode with Mary Goddard on how to make this pasta. And so she gave it if you'll want to refer to that. But it's just basically 3 cups of flour. You can mix the unbleached and the semolina and 3 eggs.
And then
Beat together.
Sometimes when it gets just a little sticky, we want to reflour it so it goes through the machine easier. So that's what I'm doing. And now I'm almost to the point where this is how I want it. Then there's a little guide on the side here. And so I will turn it this way. I'm going
The guide on the side makes the rollers closer together so she can get it
I'm
thinner.
going to have you do this one time.
Okay.
When I get this. And this will be the last one. It's the third to the last one. Notch.
I'm
And
excited
okay.
to try it because I ordered one for myself and it hasn't come yet.
Yes.
But I actually have convinced Doyle that it's going to be too hard for me to run, so he's got to help me. So this is all between you and me. Doyle still has to help me with my machine. It is super easy though. Oops, I
Okay.
couldn't resist. I wanted to do it again,
You
friend.
gotta do it 2 times. Well, I'll make it just a little bit thinner. And then we put this out like this. You want to have a nice flour on the bottom here. So I'm just going to put a little more here.
I want to talk a little bit about the flour that you're using because I noticed when I saw the package, it's a little different. You didn't actually make the pasta with it,
No.
but you could. You know, there's a lot of push for us to eat more whole grains and whole grain pastas, and a lot of people don't want to do that because they're kind of bitter or they fall apart more. And so Fran thinks that this actually works a little better.
Yes, I found this by mistake. It was on sale at our local grocery store in Grand Island. And it said white whole wheat flour, and I thought, well, it's whole wheat flour that's white, but it's not. It's light brown. It's kind of creamy, and you can really notice it in the bag from if you look at a bag of white flour and a bag of this flour. It's a spring wheat harvested in the fall, and it doesn't have the tannins that cause the bitterness in red whole wheat flour. So I have made a lot of whole wheat pasta, and I cannot tell the difference.
With this, you've made it,
Yes.
with this white whole wheat.
And it looks yellow. The only time you notice the difference is if you have some of this and some of that side by side. And then you'll see this is a little darker.
And it just looks different, that it doesn't
Yeah,
taste
it doesn't
different.
taste different.
That's amazing because
So-
we are all supposed to be doing that, and
And
you
even
know,
in
there's
this,
reasons we don't.
And even
So-
in this beet cake, I substituted a cup of whole wheat flour, this whole wheat flour, into that beet cake, and you couldn't tell the difference. It was a little bit drier, but as the cake, the next day, you couldn't tell the difference at all.
Yeah,
So
with the
it's a
beet
good
cake,
way.
it gets a little moisture every day.
But now what we're going to do is we're going to make these ravioli, and these were the spoons from my restaurant. Mary bought them from me, and when I closed the restaurant, I like them because they have a long tang.
These forks, you mean?
Tong or whatever, tang. And so you just want about a teaspoon of filling in there.
So just a tiny, tiny bit.
Yeah, you don't
And
want a lot.
Let's review just a minute. The filling that we're putting in is a beef filling. The only difference from the chicken that we made is that she used beef instead of chicken. All the other ingredients are the same. And you said it was a stew meat?
Stew meat.
Stew meat. Leftover.
And you will like this. Now Nona, because she had chickens, she put gizzards in there, and we do. Our family does like it with gizzards and hearts in it.
So
and
does
you-
this have gizzards and hearts?
No.
Oh, no. I'm actually happy I was afraid.
You wouldn't eat it if it did?
I would, but I'd be frightened.
Of what?
I don't know. I think because my mom ate them a lot when I was a kid, and they have such a rich scent. They have a really unpleasant scent when she would fry them. So,
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
it's not like eating a whole one. It's just a few pieces, and it's surprising the flavor it gives. You know, the change in flavor. Now, instead of in most cookbooks they put another one of these on top, and then they make the square. That's not how Nona did it. We do it this way.
save one step.
Yep. Save one step.
One side is done.
And then you put your fingers here. This is to get the air, pocket of air out of there.
Okay.
And you do this. You punch it completely through.
So you are punching it to get the air out.
Yeah. so that it won't explode in the water.
Now, you mentioned that you might be marking them differently for
Yes.
different things. So
This is for meat.
this is the beef marking.
Yeah, this is the beef.
It looks
marking.
like a dice with
Yeah.
6 holes.
And you can just do that with different forks. You know, you can do it different ways. So you get different forks. Okay, now you have, this is a crimper cutter. Okay, and you just want to put a little flour in that. And you
To keep
just-
it from sticking.
Yeah,
So when it looks like you're giving that pretty good of a press.
you give that a real good press. Yeah.
So press these together. They're stuck they're stuck pretty tight. And it's cutting it also.
Yes, and then you have this. This is a pastry cutter. So you just cut off that. And then, and you save this dough.
Save this little tiny piece?
Oh, yes, you don't throw any of it away.
Well,
You can eat it.
I can eat.
And then you go through this, you don't cut this through. You just make a mark here. And that is because when you freeze it, then this will snap right off.
So you make, whenever you do this, you're always planning to freeze some of it.
Always. We used to make 1,000 at a time at the restaurant.
Okay, so
So
this
now
isn't all the
here's
way
my
cut.
box, and I've got it lined with tin foil. Okay, so what we'll do is I count about 7 of them, because that's what I figured last night.
That's how many will fit across.
And then you put them like this. See?
Let me hold that for you.
And this will go right here. You just keep doing that, and then you keep
Add a
putting,
foil?
you put wax paper there
Oh, okay.
in between, and then you go the other way. You'll turn the next row around this way.
Oh, since they're longer than
yeah.
since the ravioli's not really centered.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Easy. Let's take a little break and go ahead and get the other fillings ready so we can make the other flavors too. Okay, so it looks like we are almost done stuffing our chicken and our cheese ones also. She's gonna finish up this last of the cheese.
and then I'm going to show you how I mark them different. That's kind of what you need to know.
I think it's a brilliant idea because this way you can get less arguing out of the kids.
Making them is all the same. And I put a little extra water on this because the dough was a little bit dry
Because it's
on
probably
the inside, so that you know that it would stick together.
be easier to
Yeah.
stick. So you use just regular water, not an egg wash.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now this one,
This is the cheese.
this is a cheese. So I go like this, and then I go like that.
Okay, so the difference here is it's like a cross.
That's right. Or like an X. So you just,
Oh yeah, an X.
So you can start Xing
And-
them down here.
I will do it.
Yeah.
And do you know what else? It looks like the 5 on the dice.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's you must be a gambler.
Oh. I think everyone would wish. You just really got to get the center spoke right in the same spot.
Yeah. And then you just cut them the same way.
She's pretty fast, I think, probably from restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Got to go.
So we'll just do this again. Just make an impression. Don't cut all the way through. And then you can store them again. Now you can store them in the same box because
Because they're marked.
they're marked. Yeah. So you can. What I was going to show you is that when you want to
Trading
use
places.
these, you go downstairs, and these are frozen, and say you want them for, 2 people. You eat about 4 ravioli apiece. These are all ready to go. You can just take them like this and bust them off and throw them in the water, and they're all ready to go. So you can have ravioli anytime you want it. I've had ravioli a year old and still eating it.
Oh.
Yeah, so don't
So
worry about
what
it.
about special storage? You wouldn't just freeze them just open in your
No,
freezer?
no, you put some tin foil over the top. So this is a way to store them, and the reason for storing them this way is so that you have them at any time that you want them. And then you serve them with spaghetti and meatballs, ravioli. You can just have ravioli and meatballs. It doesn't make any difference.
Okay, well, I think they're ready to cook. Why don't we take a little break and get our water ready?
Okay.
So we put all 3 kinds of raviolis in the boiling water. Now, it took us about 15 minutes to boil these, but you really need to be checking your pasta every now and then. You're going to cut into it and make sure it's al dente. You don't want to see any raw pasta in the middle, but you still want it to be firm enough that you have to chew it. This is the beef one, and we also put a red sauce on it. That's the basic sauce that we made in a previous episode with Mary. Now the cheese ones that she's pulling out right now, we have a new sauce for. It's so simple that we really don't have to show you how it was made. It's just a little bit of melted butter, probably about 1/4 of a cup, and she's shaken some sage, just some dried sage into it. So it's a nice sage butter.
There you go.
And this, you just pour it over. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's surprising how sage butter just permeates all the ravioli, and you hardly need any. And there
Yeah,
you
it's
are.
just a tiny, tiny bit.
And it's kind of a brown butter too.
Yes.
The butter's brown.
Because of the cooking.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
it just, you're supposed to do it, it just tastes better.
Yes.
It smells awesome.
Yes, uh-huh.
Let me set these on the counter. And I'm going to come back. I've got one of each flavor on my plate here to try. I'm going to start with the sage butter on the cheese ravioli. I can tell that because we've marked it with the 5 dice. During a break, I had asked Fran why she puts so much pasta around the filling. And she said it's because people just love the pasta, and it's true. Especially when it's cooked al dente like that, it's like real food, you know?
It's not mushy.
It's so good. So I just took a corner that didn't have any filling right there, and it's just as good. I think people appreciate the extra. Now, I can't tell. Sauce is covering my color code on here, or my little whole code. Let's see if it tastes any different with the... What do you think that one is? Chicken?
Yep,
I
that's
think
what
it
I
is.
think.
Very good. And remember, with these fillings, they were all exactly the same, with the only thing changing being either chicken, beef, or ricotta.
And the chicken was with Italian chicken in the cookbook. That's where that recipe came from. That was a leftover from the Italian chicken.
And the beef was the leftover stew meat. It's so good. And really, honestly, the fillings are delicious, but you could just eat the pasta too. The pasta's so great. And that sage butter has such a depth of flavor, you just don't know. Thank you, girls, both.
welcome.
Thanks
You're
for
very
the
welcome.
sage butter idea. The sage butter is not in the cookbook. This was Mary's addition. And then everything else is in the cookbook. Thank you for your cookbook. Thank you for having us here. And thank you for joining us on Local Flavor.